Details for Global Go Fest raids have been updated on the website. You're seeing a bunch of mega raids, essentially all the legendaries, and it seems like people online are pretty upset about this.
Yeah, you know, it seems like in theory such a good idea that essentially every legendary, ultra beast, and everything is coming to raids. But when you look at what that means, it means that Mewtwo is going to be so hard to get.
I agree. And we don't really know how that's going to be, especially since we don't see any schedule breakdown for featuring Mega Mewtwo X more prominently, accompanied by this tier of legendary raids hour by hour.
Yeah, because typically when there are so many Pokemon like this, they will do an hour by hour breakdown, but it doesn't seem like that's the case for this. It could get updated. I kind of highly doubt it. Once these raids are usually out, it's kind of what it looks like. I think any other time, if there is a time, it is already kind of announced with that. So is this just going to be like a free-for-all of all the raids?
I think this is a cool idea, just poorly executed. And the reason why is that grindability factor. Just dumping everything in across 2 days. It seems like it could be better with like a lead up, having all the legendaries the week before and really allowing you to concentrate on Mega Mewtwo X and Y on the weekend.
Yeah, well, I mean, we don't know if there's going to be any kind of like Road to Go Fest type of thing. How last year we had like the Reggies, and that was actually like a pretty fun event. I remember everyone like kind of clowned on the event, and then we ended up really enjoying it. And I don't know if we're going to have something like that again, but during Go Fest, it's just a lot of stuff. And like when your main focus is Mewtwo, I don't know how anyone's going to be able to like do enough Mewtwo's to actually get the Mewtwo energy that they need to Mega Evolve Mewtwo.
So for me, it's not that you can't get enough that way. It's breaking down the player base for your remote players versus your in-person players. So if you're using those premium passes, it might be more difficult with your groups finding those super mega raids, getting your Mewtwo, using your passes there, and having enough people that maintain interest to keep going with you, versus if you're remoting, you might have more success finding other groups that you could just hop in and take on Mewtwo.
You bring up an interesting point with these super mega raids, because super mega Mewtwo will only be in super mega raids, and that's kind of new. I think with super mega phalanx was the first time they specifically said it's only going to be in super mega raids. Kind of reminds me of like elite gyms for the elite raids. I don't really love that, because when you look at certain areas that like are super like populated with gyms, they only have like maybe 2 max. Are those guaranteed to be Mewtwo for Go Fest?
I would hope so. And we did take a look at the map because we're going to be in Kazakhstan during Global Go Fest. And it didn't look too bad for the super mega raids, but campfire doesn't work in Kazakhstan.
Yeah, so that's going to be kind of an interesting sort of thing to see.
And we don't really know about the resources for Mega Mewtwo. It did say that it's going to require much more of the energy to have Mega Mewtwo X and Y. And I don't know if they're fully playing into this like Eternatus, because that was an insane amount of candy to unlock everything for Eternatus. Will they do that with Mewtwo? We do see some things where when you catch Mewtwo, it'll already have the mega levels unlocked. But you know, if you have Mewtwo's already set up, like you have Hundos and Shinies ready for Mega Mewtwo, you're going to have to get enough energy to start unlocking and leveling up those mega levels.
I feel what really is happening at this point is that like all of our old Mewtwo's that we have and we have traded for are essentially going to be obsolete, because if we can't get enough mega energy, and the ones we get from raids will at least have 1 mega level unlocked, possibly up to 3, it's going to be a lot harder to want to mega evolve or even super mega evolve the Mewtwo's that we have in our collection already, making people have to raid now for Mewtwo. They're going to solve that problem. Like, what do you do when it's a Pokemon that's been out already? How do you make it where people need to keep raiding? I think this is how they are doing that.
Exactly. Having that need for more resources, it puts that question there of how much of that resource is going to be required. And right now you can hold 10,000 mega energy. Will Mewtwo be able to hold more? I don't know. And I don't know what it'll be to actually unlock that first level, because it could be one of those things to, if you have a bunch of Mewtwo's already ready for Mega Mewtwo, are you going to get those all the way to super mega, or are they just going to be level 3 megas over time?
I am also curious about with Mewtwo, when you trade them, will they have that mega energy level?
No,
I don't think so.
I don't think it's going to stay with it, because right now when you trade, it'll say that it resets. And the same thing, like when you have max moves unlocked, it resets. I don't think they're going to allow that to be tradable.
I just think if you catch it and it comes guaranteed with that, you should be able to trade it and it's like still there. I don't know. I guess we'll find out.
It could happen.
I don't know. But nonetheless, I feel like going back to the issue with all the raids and Mewtwo, though, is it just means I think it's going to be very difficult to find all the super mega raids. It's going to be difficult to have people who will have that long-term interest to continue doing that. And with it being broken up into X and Y, if you don't get enough on Saturday, then like Sunday, you really have to make sure you're getting enough for the other mega version, right? So you have the 2 days that you really have to play. So you're relying on your community to be available for 2 days. Now it is GoFest, so hopefully there's that interest for people to play like all day long.
We know a few things. We know Mewtwo brings back players. There are a lot of players that have been out of the game who may have stopped for all these reasons we see with the game. But Mewtwo typically brings people back, and I'm curious how many people are going to come back and see the changes and updates in the game and are going to play. And when you have an event like this of an influx of returning players, you also have new players, and having so many legendaries is really great for that player base. But it isolates those grinding players that have stayed true and aren't interested in those and just want the Mewtwo.
Yeah, I mean, you're right though. I feel like if you are going we brought this up earlier, like you were telling me, like think our very first Go Fest, if it was like Rayquaza plus everything else, I think we would have been like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. And it is cool. It's really fun. I think we have to remember that like everyone online right now who's complaining are the people who are dedicated to this game. They're the people who play every single event. We're talking about those people who aren't in the conversation at all right now. They don't even know what's coming. They will find out when they play.
Someone who doesn't follow Pokemon Go at all, has it downloaded, maybe hasn't played in years, and they get an alert and they see Mewtwo and they go, Mewtwo, I'm going to play. And they join in and play.
And they're going to be like surprised.
And surprised, and they see all of this stuff. I think that's a really cool experience for those players.
Yeah.
And honestly, I'd like to have some of that surprise.
Right.
But we're in the camp that we know it's coming. We've been so focused and strategic for all of these other legendaries. I'm just dialing in for Mewtwo.
Yeah, but the people who are active in the community and making these points out, we haven't even touched the second point, which is the grindability and the backgrounds of all of these Pokemon. We're just talking about the Mewtwo dilation. But the people who are making these comments online, they're the core community. They're the community ambassadors. They're the people attending the events, right?
Well, they're the players that are going to continue to play after GoFest.
Yeah.
They're going to play next year too, right? They're going to play the tours. They're going to play the seasonal events, not just the heavy hitters.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I do think something that I think we're seeing with the season change and with global trading though, is I think things like this are making Pokemon rare on purpose to enable more remote trades, right? Like if you are raiding every single legendary, you might get a background shiny Rayquaza, but I might not. So you might give it to me and I'll give you a Groudon or something, right? So it does allow for some interesting trades in the future, but that's also like 30 days after GoFest. So it doesn't solve like the immediate problem of like, I want them all now.
So I can chime in on that of how that was with Eternatus, because it wasn't to this scale, but it had this similar problem. Eternatus was coming. We were grinding that just for candy. It sped up that you didn't have to catch, but you always want to catch and have that opportunity for a hundo or the shiny, just something for catching. But once you took that out, you had the grindability, and you had all of these other Gigantamax that now had event backgrounds. We had fatigue. There were so many I wanted to go for. I would have rather went after Snorlax and Charizard with the backgrounds than just doing the Eternatus grind.
Yeah.
But the grind for Eternatus was so huge, I didn't feel like doing the other ones because I was already burned out. So I don't know if we'll have that with Mewtwo. If we're grinding it, we're doing Mewtwo just to make sure we hit our plan for all the Mewtwo's we have set up. If I see something else, if it's a Pokemon that I like, am I even going to do that raid from that fatigue?
Yeah, especially when there's things in the wild, right? Like we haven't even talked about wild spawns. It's basically every Pokemon ever in the wild will be in the wild, maybe even legendaries. We don't know.
Or the unknowns on the incense.
Yeah, unknowns,
hunting those unknowns, the ones that we want to complete, where we want to finish our shiny unknown collection. It's like, do we have to pick and choose grinding Mewtwo or how we're walking around to get those instant spawns, I don't know.
Yeah, but it also allows that if you're not interested in a raid, at least you can catch Pokemon. Because this was an issue with the fashion raid day. We talked about how, like, basically we were like bouncing around two ends of a mall to get this costume Dragonite, and there were really no good wild spawns during that event. What, it was Mimikyu, right?
Mimikyu, yes.
But that was it. Like, it was just Mimikyu. At least with GoFest, it's going to be boosted shiny odds. You're going to get good field researches. You're going to get really good like spawn diversity. So when we were walking between the Dragonite, if I didn't want to do a Shinx because I have 5 of those shiny costumes, at least I'll have some really good spawns other than just Mimikyu, which I already got in the Ultra League rank 1 before, so I wasn't even going for that anymore.
Well, it seemed like everyone was interested in Dragonite, and then you had those personal side quests. Like for me was Absol. I wanted to get a hundo with the sunglasses. Unfortunately, I didn't get that one. So I would jump in the Absols too.
Well, I would do them so I could trade them to you.
Exactly. But maybe other trainers were doing the Shinx or were doing the other raids.
But they were easier to take down though, because they were like such low stars. You're not talking about like someone really wants to do Tapu Lele, and I'm like not going to do Tapu Lele, even though I still need the shiny, but I'm not going to. I'd rather do Groudon, Rayquaza, Kyogre, Palkia, Dialga, Mewtwo, of course. So there's just so many other raids I would rather do than a Tapu Lele. And if someone wants to do Tapu Lele, is everyone else going to put in their raid passes to help a trainer out?
One of the things too, when we played the fashion event, we played with Brandon Tan. We were in Kuala Lumpur. There was a decent turnout for the groups. And so you had people interested, wanting to play with Brandon Tan, wanting to do the raids. And it was hot.
It was really hot,
It was it's not summer hot. So I can only imagine for Global Go Fest, having the community interest of how large are the communities going to be coming out, how hot is it going to be, and how committed are these trainers going to be to play all day when it's midsummer.
People played all day long when we were in Tulsa doing Necrozma, right? And that's just Necrozma. So when you bring in Mewtwo, but it was really just Necrozma.
Okay, so to chime in on Necrozma, we could do a Necrozma. That was not a problem. Super Mega Mewtwo, we know you have to take down shields.
True.
So you have a minimum group size.
Yeah.
So either your group is large enough or your group plus remote community that can join you to hit the minimum shields to even take it down. Now, we did see you could take down, let's say, Super Mega Victory Bell with 4, but that's only if you know the other trainers that you're in a group with, that they're strong enough, they're willing to take it down. If it's just you hosting and a bunch of random onlines, they want to take it down and leave, and if you don't hit the minimum, you're going to get left hanging.
Yeah. I mean, you bring up a really good point about it's not just Mewtwo, it is Super Mega Mewtwo, which requires, it's been data mined maybe 12 shields, which means your minimum 10 remote or your maximum 10 remote plus 2 in person.
Unless they open up the remote lobby size, because the raid lobby size is 20 and you can have 10 remoters right now. So unless they open it up to where the full lobby of 20 can be fully remote, or if it goes to, let's say, lobby size of 100 and you have whatever portion of remotes in that lobby size.
I guess we'll see. I mean, some of the questions about how super mega raids really are going to start working now is going to be with Phalanx, because hopefully they heard the complaints from the Kalos Tour about people being allowed in without a mega. Hopefully they fix that. We'll find that out this weekend. So right now it's a little bit speculative. We'll find some answers out on some of these. But going back to our experience in Tulsa, when Gigantamax Tulsa came out, we got like what I would say is a really good group of people out, and we couldn't even take down the Gigantamax.
Yeah, we had a win. Was it 15 or 16
people? It was 15 or 16,
some trainers we never even played with before came out. We had hosted this group on Campfire, and we were ready to take down like Venusaur or Blastoise, and we failed. Yeah. And we took down one of the Gigantamax we succeeded on, and then the other two with Charizard we failed, and everyone gave up. And we had to go to another part of town. You find another group. But it was such a win to have so many trainers show up, but then have that huge blow. You're like, wow, so many trainers I've never played with, 15 or 16, couldn't even take down this battle.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're going to see anything like that with this Super Mega Mewtwo.
Well, so there's two things. Like if I think about Necrozma and how many people came out, I don't know if that would have been enough to break the shields. I don't know if we had consistently 12 people, because you always start the morning off with the most people. That's how it was for Tulsa when we did GMAX with the other group too, right? You always had enough for the first like 30 minutes, maybe an hour. Then it got tougher and tougher to where sometimes we were forced to end events early because people weren't interested enough and we just couldn't take it down, right? So you are just going to get that where like, especially like if you're free to play, yes, we're getting 10 raid passes, but once you use your 10, are you kind of done for the day? Yeah. So as like those free to play, even like for Mewtwo, because I don't know, there's a little bit of that. So I don't know. So I don't know if even in Tulsa we would have been in person strong enough. And part of an issue when you're relying on remote raiders is everyone's playing their event. I feel like GoFest is one of the hardest times to get remote raiders in after that first Asia push. Right, you have Australia and Japan who played. Everyone in the US is joining those remote raids. That next day, they are playing their own event. They're not hopping into your other raids in the US either. Maybe a few here and there, but I would say most likely they're playing in their own community because they're using in-person passes. So you're talking about you're just having a limited number of players able to help. Unless you start getting international friends, which I would highly recommend people start doing to get ready, is get friends from other areas of the world, Asia, Europe, Australia, those places. That way, when it's your event, their event is over, they can join.
But one of the biggest issues is just game functionality right now. And that's where the app just keeps crashing. And we have these minimum size groups to take down Mewtwo. We saw this with Dragonite because it took 10 shields and some were fully remote. You don't know if someone's app crashes as soon as the raid starts.
You mean like me?
And so as soon as you start and then you see that you have 9 instead of 10 and you know immediately you're not taking down the shield.
Yeah.
Are those 9 trainers committed to try to take it down? Typically not. People will start leaving. They won't try to battle. They just want to get it really easy and catch. And now if someone's app crash prevented them from going in, you've affected so many other trainers that are not going to take it down.
Because they've wasted remote raid passes, they've lost their link charges. Well, I don't know if you lose link charges, but still you're like losing resources. And it does kind of stink. And I mean, just this weekend for Dino Com Day, I think my app crashed like 20 times.
Yeah. Well,
right. So like, my app is continuously crashing. And I'm like worried this is going to happen during GoFest.
Well, you have the crash that is started on raid begin. That's happened quite often.
Yeah.
The raid starts, you
Oh, it's happened a few times with circuitry recently.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's some instances where you're not able to rejoin or you're not able to rejoin that party or the raid is expired.
Yeah.
Then there's the app crashing upon completion. Yeah. And right before you get in the encounter, nothing.
Yeah. Then your app crashes. Yeah.
And if the raid has expired and you don't get the encounter, which is the whole point of doing this, because what if that's your shiny background and you don't get it? If it's your hundo, if that's your shundo, if that's your shundo background and app crashed, raid's not there, no encounter, you write support and they say, you've already got compensation for this. You got your candy, your mega energy.
You completed and gotten the rewards. Okay. Yeah.
So I'm really curious how that's going to be taken by the players returning to Pokemon Go.
So alongside with this too, though, is like, I'm thinking back to last summer where we played Global in Zaragoza. And we've had 2 summers in Zaragoza now. And Zaragoza is a very unique spot because clearly it is mostly spoofers. I mean, we saw a few in-person people, and by a few, I mean like
2,
maybe 3.
2,
yeah.
3.
So like,
no, we saw a group and then we saw one person playing solo.
Yeah. Yeah. So like, you don't see many people there, but the issue when it's spoofers, they're typically low-level spoofers or bot accounts that aren't strong enough. And then the real-life people, when they don't see enough people, they leave. Remember that happened? We couldn't do Gigantamax battles in Zaragoza with like 50 people. It was like kind of ridiculous. We're like, we've done this with like 10 before.
Exactly.
So you also have that worry, but this is beyond Zaragoza. Like you said, people who will leave, they're like, we don't have enough and we're just going to leave, because that seems to be happening a lot now. Is like, oh, we don't have enough people, just bail. And then people go in because they don't bail soon enough.
My thought process is, if you're in the community and you know these minimum requirements, which is the shield requirement, if you don't have enough for the shields, I would leave. If you don't know the group, right?
Yeah,
if you're
yeah.
playing with randoms, if you know you're taking it down with 9, go in with the 9. But if you don't have enough, leave. That's going to save. I like to leave at 30 seconds to give time. If it's not at 30 seconds, you should stay in. We've seen so many trainers join at 70 seconds and then leave at 60, and we end up being one trainer short. It's like, why didn't they just wait until 30 seconds?
Yeah.
There takes time to send invites. Maybe someone was in before we jumped in to start the counter to send out our group. But it's really frustrating when you see someone join for 10 seconds and then leave for whatever reason.
I don't know, maybe they're busy. Maybe they got a phone call or something too.
They got the phone call.
Yeah, they got the phone call. I don't know, but it's just like one of those things where it's like, we know Mewtwo's going to be difficult if you don't get enough people. That happened in Zaragoza with G-Maxes, where you didn't have enough people and we couldn't take certain G-Max down. That's also kind of another fear. So it's not just that Mewtwo is diluted. It's also like, how successful will these raids actually be for a decent amount of the community, right? If you're in, like I said, if you're in Japan, like, you're set, right? If you're in Australia, you're set. You're getting a lot of people who want to join you remotely as well. But it's just a little bit of that where it's like, there's that a little bit of fear too, is like, how successful will the raids even be done? Okay, so I know we've talked a lot about Mewtwo, but now that we know that there are basically every legendary, Ultra Beast, all this stuff is coming to Global Go Fest. A lot of the community too is just feeling a little overwhelmed with like collecting their backgrounds, right? Because we know there's going to be some type of global background. People want them. So like, now you're talking like, you'll have backgrounds on Pokemon like Solgaleo, Lunala, Necrozma, Rayquaza, Kyogre, Groudon, these really top Pokemon that will now have these global backgrounds. How are people going to be able to grind and get those? Because there's just too many. I don't know if you're going to be able to do but a handful of Rayquazas and a handful of Groudons.
Could be that forced scarcity.
I mean, I definitely think that's a thing. And I do think that's why global trading is a thing, because now it kind of forces the trading to be done.
To me, this doesn't really force trading. This just kind of facilitates you to be interested in not just doing mirror trades.
Or you might just want to mirror trade.
You could.
I only got one background global Rayquaza. I only want to mirror trade that. Which that then also makes it even more difficult. If you don't have like a mirror trade of that, then it's like, well, I didn't get Rayquaza, I got Groudon. But the other person doesn't have Groudon, but they want to mirror Rayquaza. So I don't know, it's kind of tough. It's going to be interesting because the shiny odds of 1 out of 20 with this many Pokemon can sometimes seem like it's not 1 out of 20, right? Even though like I know it kind of is at the end of the day, but sometimes it feels like, yes, you might get your 20th shiny on a Tapu Koko, not the Rayquaza that you want. When it's just Rayquaza or just Mewtwo, it's easier to see more shinies of the one Pokemon. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Overall, I'm excited. Mewtwo always brings that level of excitement for me. And I'm very curious, is this a tee-up for what we saw last year for the Max finale? Are we going to see some type of super mega finale later after this? Some type of follow-up event from GoFest? I think so. I
think we will too. So I wouldn't also stress too much about Mewtwo and the energy. I think you'll get a second chance for that mega finale, if that's the thing. I hope so. I mean, this is all if it happens. If it does happen, I think it'll be Mewtwo.
Well, I wouldn't say don't stress. It's not that you should have stress. If you have a goal of at least getting a Super Mega X and a Super Mega Y, or one that's both, take care of those, because this could be...
That's true. It could also not
It could be
come.
a while
That's
before
true.
it returns, because they want to make a big event. Like just Mewtwo being in raids, it's been over 2 years, and it was Easter last time Shadow Mewtwo came out.
Yeah. Back to, though, the Super Mega Pokemon. Is it necessary for everyone to get a Super Mega Mewtwo?
I don't know, and I'm curious about this. So far, we don't have any leaked information, and I don't want to put theories out there, but what if it was something that you only had an adventure effect once it was Super Mega? Or if they added something like that.
To make you want a Super Mega?
Yeah, giving you some reason, because to me, just the incentive of Super Mega, it's not really much better than just a Mega level 3.
Yeah.
It's slightly better.
It's like slightly, but not enough to be like, or like, oh my gosh, it has to be Super Mega. Because if you do one Mewtwo raid, and it comes with Mega level energy, or if it comes with Mega level 1, you wait for the cooldown, and you can just get it up to level 3 Mega for free. So you don't even have to really get enough Mega Energy to get it to level 3 right away.
Exactly. You can just wait and do it over time. But that's what I was thinking was, what if they dropped something like that, that there was some incentive that was only available when it was super mega evolved. But that's entirely speculation. And every time we've had a speculation of something that could be really good, it's never happened.
No, it never happens. And it would be really cool.
Well, sort of. We're sort of. In one of the videos where I like to get 2 of the types for like Charizard with X and Y, that came, they're going to split it and actually have those separate energies, whether you have one that's both. But I have one set up for X, one set up for Y, just because of the TM moves. So that's one instance, but I don't think we're going to see anything like that with Mewtwo.
Yeah, well, but that's another point though to make, is like, you don't have to get it to super mega level.
Yeah, you don't have to get it to super mega.
It's like an okay bonus, but it's not like a make or break. Because apparently most people don't even use megas anyway, so...
Well, this is what I'll say. We started getting mega Pokemon as soon as we started playing, because we saw the benefit in just extra candy and extra resources, and it made sense. Anytime you do a paid component, why not optimize it and get the most candy by having a mega that shares a type? We do raids all the time now, and there's so many level 80 trainers that rush to hit 80. They don't have mega Pokemon. So to me, it's like, that's the smartest thing when you're raiding. You always have a mega sharing a type, getting those resources. And those rush 80 players, they're not doing it. So I judge them with that. I'm like, well, yeah, you got to level 80 super quick, but you don't know how to use megas. That's kind of funny.
Yeah. You do. You point that out every time we raid. You're like, oh, look at this level 80 trainer doesn't have a mega. It's kind of true though.
Yeah. So
people don't use megas. So it's also like, is this a fake worry in a way? Because really people just want Mewtwo for Mewtwo.
Yeah, just
I'm going to say it here. I actually think the Mega Mewtwo's are kind of ugly.
What do you mean?
I think aesthetically, they're very ugly. I don't like them. I don't like how they look. I don't like the pantsuit for the one. I don't like the whatever. I don't like the look of them. So for me, I just want like a good Mewtwo. Like good old classic Mewtwo. Not a Mega Mewtwo.
Well, that is true that you're getting that classic Mewtwo. I like the Mewtwo Y. I'm still unsure of the pantsuit. But
I don't know.
Some of those have grown on me after I've used them. I'm like, you know, I kind of like this one a little bit more.
Yeah, maybe it'll grow on me. Sometimes I'm like a hater. Like, I don't love the Caterpie costume because I think the hat doesn't fit its head. It looks like a bad Photoshop. It looks like if I were to Photoshop a hat on a Caterpie.
Well, you know, they should have pushed for the cowboy hat for that one.
That's like a whole separate thing. But what I'll say, though, is when it comes to the game, I might be like, oh my gosh, it's actually so cute. So we'll see. Like right now I'm like a kind of Mega Mewtwo hater, but I'm just saying, really, is this kind of like, are we like upset about all these raids in a fake way? Because like a lot of people already have like hundo Mewtwo's, and a lot of people will trade for them and get hundos and shundos that way. So is it also a way to be like, there's a lot of other stuff too. If you don't care about getting the Mega Energy, you can get Rayquaza, you can get Kyogre, you can get Groudon, right? Because it is a little bit more exciting too.
Well, I think we're going to have a really good discussion once the event happens, because the comment section will probably be flooded with positive and negative experiences.
Hopefully, we'll learn a lot more too about how Mewtwo works, the Mega Energy needed after, you know, Japan Go Fest, so like during it. So that'll hopefully answer a couple of those questions of like, how much do you really have to raid to get it to super level? How much energy are we really talking? Like I said, you don't have to get the super mega though. I don't think that's like necessary. Because if you have like 1 and 1, that's probably all you need. What, am I going to have like a team of Mewtwo's all at super mega level?
Well, let's watch. And let's see with...
What if I do? I end up being like, never mind, I have 17,000 like Mewtwo's at super mega level.
Well, let's see after we play Japan Go Fest if that changes, and our take is you need to have these super megas. We don't know.
We don't know. I mean, they, like you said, they could drop an adventure effect that only works if it's super mega, and it's a really good adventure effect, and you have to get it, right? Like, I mean, you are right. Like, they always do this where there's like a reason, especially like going, it's like, I don't really need that. And then I'm like, I need that, right? So they do tend to do that. Like, especially, yeah, I just feel like, yeah, that's all I'll say. There's a reason why we're going to want to do a bunch of Mewtwo's. Now, because I don't know, I'm like, oh, whatever, but you're right.
All right, let's see. So tell us what you think. Are you excited, overwhelmed? Is this a good event, bad event? Tell us in the comments.
And we'll see you in the next video.